In the US, more than 14.5 million people are alive that had some type of cancer. Some are now cancer-free, others are still fighting. Nearly 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will develop cancer, the most common being prostate in men at 1 in 7 and breast in women at 1 in 8. 1 in 4 men and 1 in 5 women die from cancer. The most common to die from is lung and bronchus at 1 in 15 in men and 1 in 20 for women. Cancer does not only affect those whom are diagnosed, it affects family, friends, and all of those around them.
My grandma on my mom's side, she got diagnosed with breast cancer.
There's been multiple people in my life that have had cancer, but I would say the one that was most hard to it was the hardest to deal with was my uncle. He had a cancerous brain tumor.
My dad this summer was recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. Just yesterday, my mom got back from an appointment at the Mayo Clinic determining whether or not she has uterine cancer.
Well, I've known several people with cancer, but the person closest to me was my dad. He had cancer in his neck in, I think, the 2007 year or around that time. And then in 2012 and in 2013, he had cancer in his lungs and it spread to the rest of his body, and he passed away from it.
She went in for a routine just checkup with the doctor, and they found a lump, and when they did tests, it came back as cancer. My mom basically just sat me down and said, I'm gonna be gone because your grandma has breast cancer, so.
He was having seizures. He worked in a jail, and he would have seizures throughout the day, and when he got it checked out and scanned. I was actually there when he went to the doctor. A lot of my family was because they were worried, so I found out right away.
My dad found out at a doctor's appointment, and I actually didn't find out until my mom was having a passing conversation with a neighbor. So it was kind of just random.
Well, the first time around, just me had the cancer in his neck. I was in about 7th or 8th grade at the time, and my mom and my brother, sister, and I were at the park, and Mom sat us down and told us that, Dad had cancer in his neck, and we're gonna fight this the best we can, and that we're gonna do our best to get through it. And I knew cancer was nothing to scoff at, even at that stage in my life. But somehow, deep down, I knew that everything was gonna be okay in the end, because everything seemed to work out okay for me at that time, and no matter how tough something was, I always found a way to get through it. But several years later, around Christmas 2012, my mom and dad sat down, my sister and I, my brother was away in the military at the time, so he wasn't home, but they sat us down on the couch and said, Dad has cancer again, and he's gonna die from this one. And they knew it was lung cancer, and at first they thought, well, maybe we can just remove the lung and he can live that way. But when he did more tests and more scans, it turns out that the cancer had spread to other parts of his body, like to his back, to his neck, to his brain. So there was no way we could have beat this one. So we knew this time around there was no way out of it.
Well, obviously I'm gonna be sad and crying, but I mean, you gotta get over it and just move forward.
I cried a lot. It was hard because he was the closest uncle I've had.
I was scared. Cancer is a scary thing.
That time when I found out when this one was terminal was powerlessness. Like, at that moment and in the days and weeks leading after it, I knew my dad was like in the next room or in the house. I could see him, talk with him, do everything we always usually did, but there was nothing I could do to save his life. Like, he was right there, living, breathing, but I knew one day, shortly, that he would pass away, and he eventually passed away in April of 2013, 4 months or 5 months or so after we found out that it was terminal.
My mom leaving since I was close to her.
The hardest part would have had to been when I had to say goodbye, and I knew it hurt him as much as it hurt me.
I think finding out initially and then realizing like how it's going to affect things from there on.
I feel like I actually took it pretty well. I mean, losing a parent, my dad, that was tough. There's no way around that. But through the process, I knew that, you know, when he eventually passed away, when he did pass away, I knew that he was no longer suffering and that he was in a better place. So obviously I cried and I had emotional support from friends and family, but it didn't break me. I didn't break down, my grades didn't slip, I didn't go into any sort of depression at all. I had a lot of people there, friends, family, and other people who were there to keep us up, my family and myself, keep us in good spirits and keep us going. So it was tough, but we got through it thanks because of everyone else who was around us and because I knew he was in a better place.
My mom was gone for weeks at times. She had to take care of my grandma because my grandpa was going downhill with Alzheimer's, so she kind of had to take on the role of a caregiver.
I would say I was one of the most affected because he had such a short time because it was so far along, and we were so close, and I could tell it was changing him.
It hasn't really yet, not with my dad, but with my mom. She's the main provider for our house, so if there's going to be any of like the missing work thing or like her health really bad, everything's going to be upside down. It's going to be hard.
Again, you know, just that I couldn't do anything about it, that, you know, he was right there, living, breathing, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. There was nothing I could do physically, there's nothing I could buy, there's nothing I could do for him that would save his life. And it was just the waiting, like, when is it gonna happen? How long is it gonna take? And that was one of the hardest parts for me.